Glory to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to another episode of City of Desert. And once again, we are picking up with our reading from the first volume of the Philokalia and the writings and the sayings of Evagrius of Pontus. And currently, we are discussing his writings on discrimination, discrimination in regards to passions and the thoughts. So, our ability to discern where the thoughts that come to us throughout the course of the day are coming from. What is their origin? What is their nature? Do they arise within us, the passions, or arouse within us thoughts that then lodge themselves within the memory and lead us away from God? And in the section that we are looking at today, beginning on page 40, at the very bottom of the page, Evagrius is going to be discussing with us how the demons seek to deform, if you will, some of the faculties that God has given to us to protect ourselves, in particular the incensive faculty that gives rise to a kind of anger, a swiftness that is in our response to sinful thoughts or ideas, provocations that the evil one puts towards us. And often the demons will seek to get us to misuse this faculty in such a way, this power, to direct it towards sinful things or to direct it in a prideful way in the judgment of others. And then how he'll discuss how the demons then will provoke us from one passionate thought towards another, to disrupt and fragment the mind, to keep it from having its attention upon God and desiring the kingdom above all things. This is a rather lengthy saying from Evagrius, so I ask you to bear with me. I'm going to stop halfway through to offer a little commentary and then finish the saying in its entirety. So again, we are on page 40 of volume 1. And we're picking up with number 5 at the very bottom of the page. Evagrius writes, when our incensive power is aroused in a way contrary to nature, it greatly furthers the aim of the demons and is an ally in all their evil designs. Day and night, therefore, they are always trying to provoke it. And when they see it tethered by gentleness, they at once try to set it free on some seemingly just pretext. In this way, when it is violently aroused, they can use it for their shameful purposes. So it must not be aroused either for just or unjust reasons, and we must not hand a dangerous sword to those too readily incensed to wrath. For it often happens that people become excessively worked up for quite trivial reasons. Tell me, why do you rush into battle so quickly if you are really above caring about food, possessions, and glory? Why keep a watchdog if you have renounced everything? If you do, and it barks and attacks other men, it is clear that there are still some possessions for it to guard. But since I know that wrath is destructive of pure prayer, the fact that you cannot control it shows how far you are from such prayer. I am also surprised that you have forgotten the saints. David, who exclaims, cease from anger and put aside your wrath. And Ecclesiastes, who urges us, remove wrath from your heart and put away evil from your flesh. While the apostle commands that always and everywhere men should lift up holy hands without anger and without quarreling. And do we not learn the same from the mysterious and ancient customs of putting dogs out of the house during prayer? This indicates that there should be no wrath in those who pray. Their wine is the wrath of serpents. That is why the Nazarenes abstain from wine. So a lot already in this first paragraph of number 5. Evagrius is pointing, as I mentioned, to the incensive faculty that is fierce, that acts swiftly in the face of sin and temptation in order to strike it down. And so it is to be guarded because of the intensity it has and its great power. And the demons will seek to use this anger, this wrath that is to be directed towards one's own sin, as an ally. They will wait and wait patiently for the slightest opening that we provide them. And so when they see it tethered to gentleness and meekness, they know that they will not be able to get a grip upon us. But the moment that we provide this opening, for just or for unjust reasons. So if somebody does something against us, insults us, uh, and if they steal something from us, or even if they strike us, or if they do something that is only perceived in our mind as combative, and we give free rein to wrath within our hearts, even our thoughts, internal thoughts, and do not act, still the demons will take advantage of this. They will seek then through it to fragment the mind and the heart, to distract us, to have us boil over internally, and so lose that meekness of heart, that gentleness that allows for purity of prayer to emerge. Then the battle is won without their even having to draw us into a specific action. They can simply distract the mind and the heart by filling it with wrath and wrathful thoughts towards our nature, our neighbor. Even as Evagrius says, if it's just or unjust, it doesn't matter, that the wrath can work against us just the same. And Evagrius reminds us that we can get excessively worked up over trivial matters, that when we've given ourselves over to directing this wrath outwards towards others, then the smallest thing, a person's natural flaws or defects, or if they treat us in a way even that we do not want, not insulting us, not doing harm to us, but are lacking in their responsiveness to our needs, it can stir this anger within us and do so excessively and for trivial, as Evagrius tells us, trivial reasons. So we can be locked in a fight. Monks can become locked in a battle about the most trivial matters. A tool that is used or not put back in the right place, and so on and so forth, can be enough to break down the bonds of love between monks with each other and in the world between spouses. The same trivial reasons can arise in those relationships that gives rise to resentment and anger. Uh, and he makes us contemplate that one of the reasons behind this, that we are still attached to the things of this world. If we weren't, then we would not feel the need that we have to guard material possessions or to guard our dignity, our self-esteem, the view that others have of us. One of the simple examples that he gives is having a guard dog. If we have a guard dog to guard our possessions and it barks and it attacks someone, then it shows that we are attached to those things more than we are to another person, that we would rather have them be mauled than for us to lose what is valuable or precious to us. And from this, Evagrius reminds us of what we hear in the scriptures from David, from Ecclesiastes, and also from the Apostle Paul, that we are not to give way to wrath within our hearts, anger towards another at all. We are to pray with upraised hands, but the moment that we become angry towards another, that prayer begins to falter, and our minds and our hearts become agitated. And he gives some interesting examples here that are symbolic, that might not be something that we are familiar with. He speaks about dogs being put out of the house during prayer. that dogs could be a sign of this wrath and anger, of this guardedness. And so when we are engaging in the vulnerability of prayer, when we are coming before God, we are to set aside, we are to put out even those symbols of aggression. We are to put out the dogs and not allow them to be in the chapel or within the house as a whole, that there is to be a peace externally as well as internally. And doing this action of putting the dog out becomes a reminder. And likewise, he mentions to us the Nazarenes that drinking wine often lowers one's inhibition. And in doing so, we are easily moved to anger towards another, to inflate in our minds the insults that they lodge against us. And so the Nazarenes would refrain from drinking altogether. Again, symbolically, in regards to what they are guarding as being most precious, peace of mind and heart, to keep one's guard up, not to lower one's inhibitions, but to rather remain defended against the provocations of the evil one to this anger. In the second paragraph, he goes on to describe in particular our attachment to these things of the world. And again, calling to mind the fact that the Lord has told us not to worry about the morrow, that we seek to provide ourselves and our loved ones with what is needed for the day. But we are not so anxious about our future, failing to trust in the providence of God, that we are constantly laboring to store up more for ourselves. Remember the gospel passage of the farmer who did exactly that, who had an abundance of grain, and so tears his barns down, builds bigger silos to store this grain, and then is told, "You folt, this day your life will be taken from you." So what do we gain from being attached to the things of this world other than anxiety? The anxiety of pursuing them or of protecting them once we have them, or storing them in such a way that they will be protected. In a similar way, the demons will arouse impure thoughts and then suggest worries of this kind so that Jesus conveys himself away, so they can put before our mind's eye, again, impure thoughts, the desire to satisfy, again, another bodily appetite, not for material goods, but for intimacy, to satisfy our sensual appetites, our appetite for sexuality, and putting these cares before the mind. We become anxious as well. Whereas if we are content with living a modest and simple lifestyle, when we've learned to live with what is only necessary to sustain us, then we lose the tendency to hold on to things as ends in themselves. And so can be good, they can be beautiful, but if we make them an end that is greater than God, then they become an idol. And engaging them and pursuing them becomes a form of adultery, of infidelity to God. And so the apostle likened this world to a contest in an arena, he says. How then can someone be clothed with anxious thoughts, run for the prize of high calling from God, and wrestle against principalities and powers, against the rulers in darkness of this world? So how can we engage in this spiritual warfare if we are weighed down by the concerns of the world? Even athletes will strip down in order that they might run more swiftly and not be held down by bulky clothing. And yet we, in the spiritual life, will fill the mind and the heart with a multitude of concerns. And so we become sluggish in regards to the one thing necessary. We become sluggish in terms of our relationship with God and pursuing him in the life of prayer. I do not see how this is possible, he says, For just as the runner is obstructed and weighed down by clothing, so too is the intellect by anxious thoughts. If indeed the saying is true that the intellect is attached to its own treasure, where your heart is, uh, or where your treasure is, there also will be your heart. And so the intellect, if you remember, in the Greek is nous, the eye of the heart. And if this heart, this eye of the heart, is set upon gazing upon the things of this world, it's not going to gaze with clarity upon that which has true value, the love of God and the gifts of God. And so we will find it impossible to run the spiritual race, if you will, swiftly and not weighed down by these concerns. Where your treasure is, there where your heart will also be, he ends with, and that's Matthew 6:11. So what is it that we treasure? What is it that we long for? And all of this comes to light by the way that we act throughout the day, the anger that arises within our hearts, the things that we become anxious about and protecting, the things that fragment the mind. All of these reveal our dominant passions, the dominant thoughts that have a hold of us. And so let us pray today that we would take heed of Evagrius's counsel, that we would enter fully into that spiritual battle, that we would live a simple and modest lifestyle so that our minds and our hearts might be free to love the one thing necessary, to love our Lord. Thank you, and God bless you, and have a wonderful day.